about this kind of rigid borders that we have. On the question on of the BRICS, if they kind of propose an alternative to the EU, I think to some extent Turkey would be well positioned both in terms of economic power as well as, you know, there is this kind of implicit kind of post-colonial view of this BRICS of, you know, we kind of are these emerging powers and we in a way challenging the Western orders, which I think would be very attractive to Turkey on that thing. That said, and this is then coming back to kind of why is Turkey, you know, trying to get into the EU and kind of reminding why this is the case. The EU is offering something to Turkey that could be offering something to Turkey that other organizations or other groups may not be able to do, and where beyond the fact that they're already very strongly integrated economically. And I think we've been talking about this, especially with the example of Italy. Like the EU is not the most perfect, you know. It's not a perfect union. It has a lot of defaults. It has a lot of problems, but it is providing a structure that really checks on some form of extremism. And I think in Turkey, if you look at domestic politics, there is a risk of kind of authoritarian tendencies or kind of populism that sometimes get over. And I think what we see in the case of Italy, or even in the case of France, within the EU is providing some checks on some of these on these tendencies. And I think this is something that would be really in the advantage of Turkey, and something that other, you know, being part of the BRICS will not have any particular impact on that. On the visa policy being not only about visa, I absolutely agree with you. And because I was making a specific argument regarding, you know, what EU is expecting of Turkey on this issue, I only talked about this. But of course, visa policy are part of a much broader kind of goal of trying to integrate, and this goes together with, you know, this creation of the so-called Middle East Union is mainly about markets actually, and so it's mainly about capital and goods. And etc. But your question of, you know, how can you have integration of goods and capitals with no integration of the labor market is an interesting one, because in many ways this is what is happening between Turkey and the EU. Turkey's goods and Turkey's financial flows are integrated with the EU, but not the labor market, which I mean, the EU is doing that, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is what is happening.
Thank you, Juliette, and we are officially over time, but we can make our final comments. Ravza?
I wanted to thank for the question about immigration issue, and thank you for calling me professor. If I had known it would be so fast, I would have come to SETA early. Today I became a candidate. I've been working so hard, but now I'm a professor. I love it. Thank you. As far as the issue of the immigrants in Europe, I'm not an expert on this, but this is a very complicated issue. A while back I was involved in this group, and we went to Europe to talk to the Turkish immigrants there. There are stages of the problem, but one of the problems is they are not very welcome in Europe. When we look at Germany, we see that unlike the system in America where we have ESL, English as a second language education for non-native English speakers, they don't have a system like that. You have in Germany the Turkish children going to Sonderschule, a school for mentally challenged children, because they do not speak Turkish. So they feel like an outsider. But this is not just Germans' fault. The Turkish communities have stuck together, so afraid that they're going to get lost in the German society, in the German identity, that they don't even know their neighbors' names, or they are proud that they do not speak any German, although they've lived there for so long. So what's the suggestion? Prime Minister Erdogan, in this, when he goes abroad, he always says it, please become citizens, be involved in your communities. That's what we say. This is your Germany now. Your children, you cannot go back and find the same Turkey, and your children are German Turks. They are no longer just Turks. So I think this integration process, if we can get rid of the Orientalist framework within us and within the European society, I think it is something that can solve, the problem can be solved on its own. A quick comment about the BRICS, if Turkey wants to become a member of another union, on the expense of the EU project. I think Prime Minister Erdogan mentioned this at times of political discomfort. He says, if we don't get accepted, we'll just call it the Ankara criteria and forget about the Copenhagen criteria. And apply the Copenhagen criteria for the Turkish people, because it is for the good of the Turkey. And Juliette already pointed out that Turkey has gone far beyond harmonizing certain laws in areas of immigration on chapters that haven't been opened yet. So I think at this stage we have a Turkish foreign policy where Turkey acts upon the country's own interests. So I think Turkey could become a member of a totally different union in the future. And thank you, Dr. Hatem, for your comments. I think these power relations and the representations that are within us are things that need to be challenged, especially considering the fact that we live in an age of multiple identities. So the representations do not work, like the Berlusconi example. As a covered Muslim woman, when I go to Middle East, at first, in international meetings, at first nobody seems to care much about me. Because even they, as the Middle Eastern, think that they have some prejudices. The moment somebody finds out that I was educated in the US, I become the star of the show. So what kind of, these are the representations that we have within us, the prejudices we have within us that are related with the Orientalist power relations that we don't even know we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravza. Selcen?
I just want to make a short comment about the bridge and the immigrants' integration problems. The bridge is, of course, it can be a good opportunity for Turkey in economic terms, especially. But when we compare with the other organizations and other corporations in the world, EU is an integration project. So it's more than an international organization. So it has some different signs, as Juliette also mentioned, which helps and supports the transformation process in Turkey. So, of course, it can be an option, as a complementary option, why not, in economic terms in the future, maybe. And there are some, these are the countries, which includes Brazil, China, and which are trying to become regional powers in their regions. So it can be an option in complementary terms. In terms of immigrants' integration problems in the EU, I think Juliette mentioned this argument. Turkey's integration process to the EU will also help the solving of all these integration problems in these countries. And many people may prefer to go back to Turkey who are already living there, probably, because we saw this case in the case of Spanish and Portuguese accessions, because many people, Spanish people, Portuguese people who are living in other countries prefer to go back to their own country, because when there are better living standards, why not live in your own home country? So this can be an option, and also in the future, Turkey has a very young population, dynamic population. 50% is under 30 years old. So it can be even maybe seen as a constructive thing in the future, rather than a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all, and you deserve a tea and coffee.